Hey, Deryck, can you hear me? Do I have you? Deryck, I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. We are currently live, but I don't hear you. Not sure if you can see me. Bring you back in. Anything?
I'm still trying to, you know what? We're just going to go back to all defaults and go low tech. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm not hearing you now. Let's see. There we go. How about now?
I've got you. Can you hear
All right.
me?
Yep, I got
All
you. So
right,
we're just
man.
going to have to go low tech tonight
All
because,
right. We're live, by the way. Typical technology, right?
yep.
So, welcome to Training Talk, March 1st, 2023, everyone. As usual, we want to know, man, where are y'all tuning in from? Drop some comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Like to see, how far the show spreads. We'll jump into the topics tonight, and of course, always we welcome comments. We welcome questions and discussion. Jump into the show as much as you want. If we can go back and forth with the comments and questions, we certainly will. If we can bring it in. Tonight's show is brought to you by Primary Arms Online. You've heard us talk about it before. It's a fantastic store. I've said it in the past, but I don't think that I've ever jumped on their website. They haven't been running some sort of special. So if you haven't purchased something with them before, you drop in your email address tonight, and they're giving $20 off your next $200 order, your first $200 order. So check out the website if you haven't. Thanks to Primary Arms Online for sponsoring the show tonight. Deryck, man, what's happening?
Typical night, running around technology. We've been doing the show for, I don't know, what, 2 years now? And it still seems like we're both like technology running around at the last minute. Like, why isn't this working?
Nah, definitely so. Definitely so. And that's the fun part of doing live shows, right? Is that ultimately these kind of problems do come up, and it's not like Deryck. You got the PDN team right there behind your tent.
Right.
So we kind of fix things as we go along. But looking forward to having a great show tonight. Yeah, I think that if I understand things correctly, I think that we're up to 25 or 26 states that have some form of constitutional carry. My state's Louisiana. We don't fall on that list. We had a governor veto a bill that went to his desk just, I guess, almost 2 years ago. We hoped eventually to make full constitutional carry. We did pass constitutional carry last year for veterans, those currently serving or former serving in the U.S. military. So we're starting to move in that direction a little bit. Florida's been making the headlines, right?
Yep. Yeah, like you just said, what Louisiana did. I like constitutional carry. Like, I really think it's a disservice to like, block out. Okay, it's okay for the military and these people, but not the rest of the citizenry. Like, I served in the Marine Corps, and like I got my first Florida permit based off of my DD 214, and my DD 214 and what I learned in the military had that much to do with being armed as a citizen walking around the United States of America. It's so like I believe it belongs to everybody. The Constitution doesn't give me a benefit because I served in the military, right? Like that,
No, absolutely, and we're going to talk about some of that tonight. I did not serve in the military. I know that you did. Plenty of our listeners and watchers did, and obviously, I thank everyone for their service on that. But there are people that literally spend an entire career going through the military and serving that have never touched a real firearm, right? That fall into that category of being able to carry, at least in Louisiana, under constitutional carry. So we're going to talk about constitutional carry tonight. We're going to talk about training surrounding it, and jumping into that as well. we've got a couple of videos that we'll probably jump into and show, and some stories we'll talk about. So should have a pretty exciting show tonight. I was trying to look at some of the comments here a second ago. They've got people tuning in from Florida, Georgia, Minnesota. And you and I just got a text, I think, from Arkansas. Tyler Grant, if you're watching, man, good to hear from you. Hope everything's going great with you. But he just sent you and I a text. So I assume he's kind of tuning in tonight as well. We're in March, right? And so March every year for PDN is huge because we're kicking off the Personal Defense Network Training Tour. Where myself, Deryck, Rob Pincus, and several other instructors who are contributors to the Personal Defense Network will be running around the country and sometimes out of the country offering defensive classes. And you've got somebody like Ryan Hoover that is teaching inside of 2 arms reach a good bit and a lot on the grappling side. You've got Deryck and I that spent a lot of time teaching. Or previous years, we spent a lot of time doing instructor development. A lot of stuff surrounding personal defense with handguns, with long guns. In that outside of 2 arms reach space, but in that personal defense space. And the close-up ambush style attacks, force-on-force classes. Don Edwards, who does a lot of stuff around law enforcement and civilians with after the lights go out, right? He does a lot of low light classes and a lot of night vision style classes, but a lot of contributors that are contributing to the website that are running around teaching. So if you haven't been over to the calendar, I know that I still have to get my classes posted. I think Deryck still has to get his classes posted. But if you haven't been over to the calendar at the PDN page, check it out. I think I've got it right here. Yep, there we go. So PDNTrainingTour.com. You can check out the instructors teaching on the tour this year and some of those locations taking place. So yeah, March is always big. And looking forward to getting back on the road some and seeing some of the people that I typically only see when I'm running around the country teaching.
Yeah, actually, you know what? The boss is watching. Rob's now we got Colorado, which is Rob. We got Iowa, Chad Colby. What's up, man? I haven't seen Chad in a while. We got Covington, got someone from your town checking in.
Awesome. So yeah, people coming in from all over the place. Yeah, tonight's show, like I said, constitutional carry and really training surround constitutional carry. I think, I do want to highlight a couple of things. We're going to jump into a video first, starting off. If I can find
Before you jump into that, though, right? You were talking about the tour. Let's talk about all of our sponsors for the tour.
Yes.
Right? We got Nemo coming back again. We have Canik coming back again. G-Code holsters this year. Cape Gunworks again. With their rapid fire radio. Vertex, I think, is officially on this year. I'm like going off the top of my head right now. What am I missing?
So you're asking the wrong person to come off the top of the list real quick. But, let's talk about a couple of them. Nemo Arms, if, you haven't seen the video, the YouTube video that I stuck out, I think in January from SHOT Show, they're doing some updates to the rifle that you and I have been carrying. They've got some other stuff that they came out with as well, including a 22 long rifle, AR style platform. Doing some more stuff with their 300 Blackout. They've got a curved mag, AK-47 style magazine, the AR style magazine, but the curved magazine with the 7.62 by 39 rounds. They're doing lots of stuff with it. But their rifles, Deryck, I know you love it. I've spent a good bit of time throwing mine in different hands and putting a good bit of rounds down range with it. I still haven't cleaned it, by the way. Have you cleaned yours?
Nope. Come on, man. That's almost like a requirement to be one of my go-to using guns or rifles, right? It needs to be able to put up with me not liking to clean my guns all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that Nemo rifle, man, the one on the 7.62 by 39. What's cool about that one is they actually put it in an AR platform and it actually runs the manual of arms like an AR.
Yes.
A lot of companies put that gun out in the AR platform, but it doesn't run exactly the same way with the manual of arms as a typical AR does. So that's what I really liked about that one.
Yep, absolutely. With bolt lock, with magazine
Exactly.
lockback.
Yeah, so you
And
don't just
so
let it click.
that's where a lot of them, haven't. Yeah, Canic. Canic, dude, everybody loved the Canic gun that I had out last year. The Meta Series, the SFT Meta Series. Dude, it's I'm not a bad shot at all, but it's amazing how great of a shot I become with that Canic in my hand. All of a sudden, it's the rounds are just naturally stacking on top of one another without really even trying very hard with it. I think that, in that price point, I don't know that you can find any gun that has that great of a trigger with it. But this year, they came out with a smaller concealed carry style, more of a single stack size frame. That they came out with, and hopefully should have my hands on one of those. You should have your hands on one of those pretty quickly. But I know that students, time and time again, when I had those in classes, loaning them out last year to students that had gun issues, didn't have a gun, or just wanted to shoot something a little bit differently, everybody loved the Canic across the board.
Yeah. You did a video on Canic because I was, if everybody doesn't know, I was Barrett's cameraman. So if you think Barrett looked good on camera, you just thank me. We were at SHOT Show. Do you remember we were at the Canic booth and they had those two like special Cerakoted painted Miami? What was
My
it?
favorite.
Was it?
Oh yeah, I love them. Absolutely love them.
Well, the local range, I when I help out with CCW classes here local, the shooting happens usually at Total Impact in Nokomis. They've sold 2 of those already, and they got 2 more in over the weekend.
I need to say I need one.
Oh my god! Like that gun is like one of the guys that was working behind the counter, like, oh man, he goes, this thing's been crazy popular. I just had to laugh because if you haven't seen it, like go out and I'm sure Canic has it on their website.
I'm gonna have to pull up pictures of it here in a minute. And I've got it in my video, that I have on YouTube as well.
It's pretty bright. They're both
pretty bright, but it's funny. I didn't realize it when we were doing the video in Vegas, but when I came home and looked in my closet, I actually realized I have a matching shirt. I mean, just almost identical pattern, dude. It's crazy. The colors are the same. The pattern's almost the same. I went to some luau birthday party or something last year, and I bought 2 Hawaiian shirts, for that, and sure enough, one of those matches to the T.
Nice. Oh, you know what? USCCA Delta Defense is back. Vaultec, and you did a video on some of their newer stuff, which I think that bedside clock thing is awesome. And then we have Next Level Training Cert. I think I got them all. I think I remember them all.
Yeah. Let's see. G Code. G Code's on board. Yep. And Freedom Munitions.
Freedom. That's the one I did not get.
Yep. So Freedom Munitions. They went through an ownership change here just a few years ago and have been producing some solid ammunition. So look for that, on the training tour this year, and I'm sure some special discount codes as well. For the students that are coming out into the classes. While we were doing this, I shouldn't say that. I am getting pictures to be able to show the colors because I really love these guns.
If somebody hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah. So I'll pull those up here as we're going through. But yeah, great sponsors again this year. The kickoff of the tour will also include just like we've done in the previous years, a live event where a few of the contributing instructors get together and go through a couple of these sponsors and then also some sponsors from the live event, whatnot, of some pretty, solid gear. Any of the sponsors that are brought on, obviously, all of us have a very strong interest in making sure it's solid products. Nobody wants to talk about something that they don't truly believe in. And so the kickoff of the live tour here in a couple of weeks, we'll be going through a lot of that as well. So look forward to all of those live events that will be coming out as well.
Yeah, get over to PDN, sign up for their newsletter and their updates. I think the live is scheduled tentatively either the 20th or the 21st.
20th or the 21st, and
Yeah.
and typically it's about middle of the day, right?
Yep.
If I
And then of
remember
course, if you miss
correctly.
the live, we'll post up the video, recording of it that you can catch after.
Definitely so. So we did get a little sponsors, right? So
Yep.
there we go. Can you see that, Deryck?
Okay.
Good
Yeah.
on the screen. So yeah,
Yep.
there's
That's
that
one of them.
one that they came out with, and then this one as well. And so yeah,
Yeah.
some really cool color patterns with it. I'd love to get one of their smaller guns, in that one, in one of those color
You know,
patterns.
it was
That'd be
a paint
great.
job.
What's that?
I said, with that paint job.
Oh yeah, you know me.
Yeah, I
I
know.
wanted the blue Nemo.
I know, and I wanted just the regular old slate gray. I wanted to
Right?
be gray man.
Definitely so. Ah. All right, I've got a story here. At this point, y'all have probably seen it. There's a couple things I want to talk about it. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. This is the Florida teenager at a Florida high school that was upset with his teacher and went over and knocked her to the ground, tackling her, punching her, and ultimately, knocking her completely unconscious and beating her senseless, all on camera. Let's see. Not sure why this is not showing on my screen share.
And this everybody will see, but it's not even like it was a small student. Like the student was 6'6". I mean, that's 2 inches taller than me even.
Yes, he was 6'6", and let's see. I don't
Pretty
know
sure
why
he
this isn't
outweighed me
coming
too.
through, but he's 270 pounds. So
Yeah.
he's 17, but 270 pounds, 17-year-old. Here we go. All right. So as this video kind of goes through, here's your teacher with her back to us walking away. She sees him just the moment that he turns, pushes her to the ground. You can tell she's completely unconscious there. Horrible, horrible actions from the student here without any regard to her safety. Ultimately, if somebody would allow this to go on, it potentially, could have taken her life. Thankfully, she is recovering from these injuries, but horrible, horrible injuries. But I want to play this back a little bit to talk about a little of this. And I've watched this a few times. And like I said, some of y'all may have seen this. But I think first, the lady that is walking towards us in the video, it's important to pay attention to her real quick. Let's just watch her actions as she witnesses this. She turns, she sees it, and it immediately kind of keeps walking and just kind of stands there. Now, she may want something to happen. She may want them to stop, but she doesn't take any action. So whether or not she doesn't know what to do, or she's afraid to get involved or doesn't want to get involved, all of that becomes irrelevant. But the fact is she doesn't get involved. And so she's just standing there at that point. So that's one witness that you can see now as other people come, she literally just turns and walks away, off camera there. The other people in the screen, right? You've got a guy and what looks like maybe a female that are coming, walking towards us, coming from around the corner, and now another female with her back to us running over. Now, first watch the female with her back to us as she runs over. She clearly wants to get involved. She's trying to, at this point, reason with the attacker, is what it looks like. She's talking to him. She's hitting him on the kind of the shoulder, but not really taking any strong physical actions. Again, this is a very large person that would be very intimidating for someone that doesn't have the training to be able to quickly, get involved and to be able to do something there. And so, here's the second witness that doesn't take enough of a significant action to be able to make a difference here. Now you have the guy and the girl that are moving over towards the attacker, and another third person running in. Now, if you look at the guy as he's walking over, you can see that he's walking over. There's no urgency, as he moves over until right at that last minute. I don't know what was going through his mind, at that point walking up.
Dude, that's a
But he's
Marine.
what's that?
That is a Marine.
He's got the uniform.
That's the dress blues with the blood stripe. And as he turned, like I can see it. I'm pretty sure I can see his chevron, his rank.
Right. And I figured that you would be able to see some of the details that I'm not going to be able to notice on that. But look at his walk. I mean, he's walking over, takes the time to set down whatever that was, his phone or tablet or, a notebook or whatever that was before coming over. Now, he does get involved. He clearly grabs the guy. He gets it off. So he is definitely the one who is able to stop the attack, but again, there was no urgency getting to that point. Right. And again, everybody was assisting at this point to be able to get the attacker off. But as we play this video, Deryck, what's the big things? Obviously, I've covered some points of the people coming in, but lessons learned. What's some big stuff that you're seeing here? What's the big obvious stuff?
Well, for the poor woman that's getting beat, like if she knew this kid was a problem, like I see improvised weapons, and I actually see a way for her to make space. See the tables that she could put between herself and him. Instead of standing there and letting him like bowl her over, try to run away from him and get a table or chair between the two of them, if at all possible. But like these small, like the first woman that walks up and starts tapping his shoulder, like really that's almost like the dog attacking somebody and you just walk up to the dog and now the dog just turns on you. Like she literally put herself in the position where get off of me, and he turns around and then hits her. Like if you're going to get involved, like you need to violence of action. Like even the Marine disappoints me. Like everything I was taught, like violence of action. Like he should have
that's it, right?
And tackled him, come in with some hard force and literally scooped him off of her.
Right. And this is something that we cover in our active shooter response training is that, if you're going to act, you've got to act in such a way that is violence of action. You're putting so much violence in motion that the person doesn't have time to really do anything except react to you stopping that attack, at that moment. And you're right. It's just he kind of nonchalantly walks over there. And again, he stops what's taking place. But you have a female that doesn't look to weigh that much, that is literally just horribly beat. I think she was punched a total of 15 times before somebody stopped it, by someone who's 270 pounds is in 6.5 feet. Right. And so what was all this over? You know what this is over?
She took one of those little Game Boy Nintendo.
Yeah, like, Nintendo Switch,
devices.
Right? So he's playing with his Nintendo Switch in class, as all teachers would do. She confiscated it, and so he was retaliating from that. And after police got there, the student, let's see. He said he was upset with the victim because she took his Nintendo Switch away. The rampaging student began spitting in the teacher's direction. This is after law enforcement gets there, and he started telling cops that he was going to kill her when he returned to school. So he wasn't even calmed down. He wasn't even changing anything by the time he was hauled off in cuffs. But and I think a big takeaway with all of this is you can't really expect people to get involved. If you're going to act, it's you who are acting. And I think that we see this time and time again. We see plenty, and I see this in active shooter response videos and witness accounts all the time where people see something, they want to get involved, but they haven't had the training. They just don't know what to do. And so that ends up slowing a lot of that response time coming through. But he knocks, let's see, from the moment that he first makes contact, that is, I don't know if the time shows up, but I'm showing 5 seconds on my video until the time that it was stopped, right? 15 seconds. And so 15 seconds with multiple people around, that attack went on. And I think that like I said, I think one of the big takeaways is that you can't expect someone to be able to get you to safety. You can't expect someone to be able to act on your behalf. Is that if you're a potential victim, don't expect others to get involved at all. You're the one responsible for your safety, and you're the only person you can count on, because those 15 seconds could have come out a whole lot differently during this encounter.
But I mean, her head's down on I'm pretty sure that's like, that thin and industrial grade carpet that has sitting right on top of concrete, and he's bouncing, he's hitting her in the head between concrete in that little bit of carpet. Like, she literally could have been killed in those 15 punches.
Absolutely. It definitely could have come out differently. So I don't think you don't want to be like that guy, right? This is not somebody we want to mimic in life.
And the girl that was walking, like, there was that one girl that was on the far left, I'm pretty sure it was a female, that was walking towards the camera that did nothing. I would be willing to guess she was probably another student.
And that's what I'm thinking as well. And
I wouldn't be shocked if this guy that did this attack is known to be the guy you don't mess with in school.
Right. I would definitely, just looking and watching her, behavior, and just looking at what looks like her age, I would definitely agree that she's most likely a student. And again, would have rational fears of not getting involved in that situation.
But definitely disappointed in the Marine.
All right, I've got another video I want to share, and this one is not of the encounter. It's really just more of the aftermath in general. But this comes back from your old, stomping grounds in that sense of Washington, D.C. And so how many times, Deryck, do you think you jumped on the Potomac Avenue metro station?
Didn't jump on it much, but I definitely went through it a bunch, like, because I was working in DC for contracting, I don't know, easily 10 years, going New Carrollton, and then at the various metro stops, depending on which government agency I was working for at the time. But I definitely had been on and off Potomac, not a ton, but I've been on and off a lot of them.
Yeah, but been right through there, right?
Yeah.
Right through that area. And that's where this one took place, this next video, if I can get this up. It's funny, I test all this stuff, before we start the show. And then, of course, typical technology, I have issues with it once we go live. All right, so I've got it up now. Well, I don't have it up, but I have it queued up, at this point. This lady here, she is, I guess you would be considered, she would be the victim, but she's also, the hero in this encounter. And so ultimately what happens is, a guy had just shot 3 people at this train station. And from that point, he jumps on the train at the Potomac Avenue metro station. He killed one of the people, but shot a total of 3. So he gets on the train, walks in with a gun in his hand. People noticed it right away, and when they noticed it, he made the comment like, "Hey, I'm not going to hurt anybody." But although he made that comment, he also immediately stopped someone or prevented someone from leaving. And so you've got somebody who tries to run off the train, and he's stopped. He's like, "No, you're not going anywhere." And so the guy said he's not going to hurt anybody, but he's got a gun. He's showing manic behavior. And I think I'm quoting, one of the witnesses at that point, showing manic behavior, and ends up, holding people there at gunpoint. Well, the guy that you see that was just hugging the female, he was one of the victims on the train, and he's hugging the female who ultimately saves the day, this day. And Shantae Trumpet is the female, if I have her name correctly, in this video that we see right here. And so Shantae Trumpet, she is sitting next to the attacker. And she's sitting there, and I'm sure she's scared to death, right? She's on a train car, with someone that has a gun that is just kind of pacing around, sitting. He's saying things, and everybody on the train is obviously, scared, at that point. But she sits there and she has a little bit of wits about her, and she notices the guy's grip on the handgun. And he's kind of got a death grip on that handgun. And she's just sitting there and she's watching the gun and staring at the gun and watching the gun and watching his hand. And she noticed his grip relax. And we talk about all the time in active shooter response and spree killer response training, how different situations arise all the time, and how it's important to have a basic understanding of different parts of it to be able to act when those opportunities present themselves. And an opportunity presented itself. And so she saw the guy's hand relax on that grip. And when it did, she immediately grabs the gun from the guy's hand before he's able to even realize it. He's just trying to react to her grabbing that firearm where she already has control of it. And so she immediately runs off the train, with the gun. He's chasing after her, and they ultimately both end up on the ground. Well, when they go to the ground, she loses full control of the handgun and just kind of skips across the concrete a little bit. Well, you've got other people involved now, but she was able to regain control of the firearm. And when she did, she basically took the gun and threw it somewhere where the attacker, could not gain access to it. You couldn't get to it. So I don't know if she threw it in bushes, over a fence, or what that was. But she recognized that she may not even have any training, any knowledge on guns, but she knew that if she got the gun away from that attacker, that he was not going to be able to use it against anybody that day. And he had already shot 3 people. And so what does that mean? That means that she likely saved the lives of multiple people that day simply by capitalizing on that opportunity that exists. So she's a hero, no doubt. Shantae Trumpet, is her name. Like I said, if I'm getting that name correctly, and there's no doubt she saves lives that day. So who do we want to mimic? We want to be like her. Want to take quick action when that action presents itself.
Great textbook what you teach in active shooter response.
Yep, absolutely. So I just got a message, talking about the Marine as well in the previous video. He brings up, 2 to 3 seconds to see it, 2 to 3 seconds to process it, and then he gets involved. And there's a lot of truth to that, right? You've got to recognize what is taking place before any actions can be brought, any response can be brought, right? Is that you've got to be able to, in that situation, he was analyzing and trying to figure out what was taking place. He could have initially thought it was 2 mutually combative students, it could have been other stuff as well. And so that definitely does and can slow down the response. But even when he chose to get involved, at that point and made the decision to pull it back, there was still, no violence of action.
Yeah. Because, that's a big boy, all right? I'm 6'4", 245. And, he outweighs me, and he's 2 inches taller than I am.
Yeah. I'm just under 6 feet and, just at 175 pounds. And so if I'm going to deal with somebody that's 270, I can't go up and believe that I'm going to be able to, simply overpower that person's strength over mine, right? I've got to act in such a way that would set me up for success and set the victim up for success.
So are you looking over on chat roll at all? Like over on chat roll, got one question, like, is this incident considered warranted to use deadly force to stop? Right. We don't play lawyer. Like use of force, I'd highly recommend to get into a Masada U Mag 20 class, or something from one of the other attorneys out there that teaches self-defense law. But all that said, this is just my 2 cents, not legal advice. It's disparity in size. Like, he is a lethal threat to her smaller size, just being 6'6", 270 with his bare hands. He has the potential to be lethal, sort of like the George Zimmerman case, right? He was being attacked with hands, with his head being smashed into a sidewalk.
Yeah, no, it's definitely. I mean, I think, and again, we can't give legal advice because we're not attorneys, that kind of stuff. But from the standpoint of the female being knocked unconscious, I think you could make an argument for her all day long that her life was in danger. But thankfully, I don't think that deadly force was necessary in this encounter. Because of all of the people who eventually were getting involved to be able to stop that. And again, if you've got a 250-pound, 6.5-foot, athletic fighter male man that could physically potentially overpower that individual, then I don't think you're going to be able to make an argument for him to be able to do something like pull out a firearm. But if you've got a 100-pound female, great disparity difference that is trying to save the life of a 100-pound female, then you're going to be able to use more force faster. But yeah, it's absolutely to have a much better understanding of the self-defense law. Definitely good to jump into a class that is specializing in teaching that kind of stuff.
Then we got another one. I'll condense this one, but it was from Robert. I guess he was teaching in a rural school, and he basically said he got in trouble. He had a student attack him. He held him, so the student couldn't hit him anymore, and that's what got him in trouble. And he was told his only responsibility was to call for help and let the kid keep hitting him until help arrived or other student decided to stop him. And then he was actually threatened with arrest for child abuse, even though he did not hit him, only restrained him.
Yeah.
And I've seen news stories like that. That's unfathomable to me. But at the same time, like, if it was happening to me or I saw something like it happening, last thing I'd be thinking about would be what's going to happen to me. I'm going to save a life and then deal with the aftermath later, right? Like, you can put me in front of a jury, and maybe I'd still end up, getting in trouble. But at the least time, I could have a clear conscience knowing that I did not let somebody else get killed, or I did not let myself get harmed to a point where I can't support my family and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, that's from obviously the school doesn't want the liability from any of that kind of stuff. But it's kind of like the zero tolerance policy with fighting and that kind of stuff at school. I mean, I've given my kids full permission to protect themselves, against bullies, and protect themselves, against other people who are trying to hurt them in a way where they were the innocent party, or if they're protecting innocent people. Right. And that would probably violate some school policies, but at the same time, they're not going to come home and get in trouble because they protected themselves against a bully. Right. Not going to be a thing. They may be in trouble at school, but they're certainly not going to be in trouble at home.
I'll just throw it in now. I'm old, man, because you know what? When I was a kid, middle school, high school, you never in a million years considered putting your hands on the teacher. Never in a million years.
Yeah. And I had a pretty rowdy high school, I feel like, and same thing, the student to student was happening all the time, but a student to teacher, I don't have any memory of that taking place, at my high school. But I remember day one of my high school, man, that was what was like you label as a pretty big riot that broke out in the Commons. I mean, it was day one, and police had, were called in to break it up because it was just freaking ongoing, but none of it was student to teacher.
Yeah. The days we living in, but
absolutely.
So last, we got one more, right? It's my town. This one's actually my township, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So Deryck has a local story that really, to me, is one that's always on my heart, and probably one of these things that I think like there's gonna be the most important thing we say tonight, right? But bring it up, Deryck.
You got here in Northport, Florida. Now it's been almost 2 weeks ago. We had a grandmother get shot in the back by her 6-year-old grandkid in the car. And what did all this stem from? The gun was unsecure and within hands reach to the grandchild in the back. It was in a holster. Hey, I'm glad you put a gun in a holster and a loaded gun in a holster. But if a kid's going to be around, you got to prevent unauthorized access. So that's when the Vault Tech safe needed to be broken out and have the gun put in it and put it under the seat.
Yeah, definitely so. And I was trying to pull up that story to see if I could just throw it on the screen real quick, while you were talking about it. But I mean, this is not an anomaly, not that big of one, right? It's happened before, and responsible gun ownership prevents it from happening again. So let's see.
Yeah. The gun was placed in how most cars have like that pouch behind the seat, and the gun
Yep.
was
Okay.
in
Yeah.
that pouch. And I believe, if I remember right from the story, there was something that sort of draped over the pocket behind the seat. And the little kid, the gun was in a holster, loaded, obviously, loaded, one in the chamber, in a holster, stuffed down in that pocket. And I'm pretty sure they weren't driving. Thank God they weren't driving, because that could have even been even worse. But the kid got it out and was playing around with it. Right, little kids will be little kids.
Yeah.
And
Definitely so. And it's
definitely nearly shot her. Like, she's gonna recover from the gunshot wound and all, thankfully. But unnecessary. We're gonna
right,
have millions
completely
of that.
unnecessary, and that's the big kicker, right? If you look up the numbers from the CDC, I think there's an estimated about 16, maybe 17,000 people who are injured each year as a result of an unintentional gunshot injury. Meaning that somebody wasn't intentionally shooting them. They either shot themselves or something like that. They were shot by a grandchild, right? And while true accidents can happen, almost all of those are easily preventable. And obviously that one was easily preventable. And
Yeah.
so, with rights come responsibilities. And obviously I'm glad we have the right to have firearms to be able to protect ourselves, protect our loved ones, protect our family. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're responsible in the way that we do that as well, and prevent access to those who could not be trusted with those firearms, that they don't have training on those firearms.
Yep. Yeah. With Rob's shirt, with rights come responsibilities.
Yep, absolutely, and it's he's 100% true on that. Let's dive back and talk more about constitutional carry. Like we talked about in the beginning, 25 plus states, and probably going to pick up a few more states here in 2023 are passing some form of constitutional carry, permitless carry, meaning that you don't have to get the permit, to be able to carry the firearm concealed on the person. Now, there's plenty of states that open carries constitutionally protected already, such as Louisiana. But concealed carry is currently seen as a privilege here. But more and more states are moving to constitutional carry, and what does that really mean? It means that the permitting process isn't required. That's all that really means on the surface, right? But is training required? Well, there's plenty of states that don't have training requirements now, but it doesn't mean that we don't need to get the training, right? Again, it kind of rolls back to rights and responsibilities. We give you the constitutional right to be able to carry the firearm concealed on your person, as we should, but it doesn't mean that you should do so carelessly, recklessly, without training or any of that kind of stuff. And so, Deryck, on those states that are becoming more and more popular with constitutional carry, what do you think the pathway forward is for those individuals that aren't being required to be able to go sit in the class?
I think it's a perfect opportunity for those of us that have been in the gun world, enthusiasts, not just us as instructors, but anybody that has already owned a gun and already been through training, to really get the word out that it is your constitutional right and you should exercise it. But you should realize that you walk out of the door with a gun strapped on your body, you're walking out into the real world with a gun. You really should get some training to make sure that you're going to be as responsible as possible, least likely to have an accident where you end up hurting yourself or a loved one. You should take it upon yourself. I'm sure you hear it too. Like, it came up on Saturday. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't like the fact that people can just strap on a gun and go carry it around without any training." But what's the standard for training, right?
Well, are we talking about Florida? Are we talking about another state? And that's just it. There's plenty of states that have their standard, but while Louisiana has a standard, I mean, my class that I offer is 10 hours long. But in that 10 hours, I always tell students it's way more about learning how not to shoot and learning why not to shoot, more so than it is building the skills necessary to protect yourself in a counter ambush violent scenario.
Yeah. And that's what the group I work with down here, Armored Alliance Group in Nokomis, like, I don't do CCW classes really anymore through Echo 5. I'll go help those guys out. And that was one of the big reasons I started working with them, because they're real big on what do you do what's the best way to get out of this without shooting the gun or even pulling the gun out.
Yeah,
the fight you get out of without using your gun, without even touching your gun, is the win, right? Use your feet, run away. Nothing wrong with running away when possible.
Absolutely not. And that's just it. And so, you've got different classes that are being offered, some of them that are certifying people, that to conceal carry may not have anything to do with concealed carry, right? And so, or defensive shooting at all. And so you've got different things that are being taught, but regardless of the training and regardless of the class and regardless of, the requirements, we need to make sure we're, are being real with ourselves on where we are with our skill sets. And there's plenty of people that are going to be carrying under constitutional carry that already have training, but may not have taken the state mandated class, right? They may have been, taking training classes multiple times a year and firing thousands of rounds a year. But yet they never took the official state mandated certification class. And so, that may not be the person we're talking about here. But there's plenty of people that maybe grew up around firearms. They've been to the range, they shoot, they own guns, but it doesn't mean that you are at the skill level and have the skill set necessary to protect yourself. And as Rob said in the past, I think you talk about making Earth a better place, right? Are you making the world a better place by doing what you're doing with a gun? Now, part of that is protecting others. Part of that is protecting yourself. Part of that is not just thinking about, the trigger press and the encounter, but thinking about and all the aftermath that goes along with it. And so I obviously think that training should be a thing, just not state mandated, right? But you still need to make sure that you have the skill set necessary to protect yourself, with firearms, and don't just carry around a false sense of security. And I think that that's sometimes where people are.
And the state mandated training, like, you got like a lot of people that want state mandated training. If you're going to have like, whoa, constitutional carry, there should be state mandated. When you think about state mandated stuff, it's basically lowest common denominator stuff. And like, I can tell you, Barret can tell you, like, you have a shooting qual you have to put people through. Florida, we don't. Florida is pretty wide open right now. I have to watch somebody shoot a gun and say that they have demonstrated the capability to handle the firearm. Well, what does that look like? That's super, super, super subjective right now. And there are courses you can take for 3 hours at a gun show. And after they tell you whatever they're going to tell you, they literally hand you a suppressed 22 that you shoot into a clearing barrel. So is that demonstrating competency with a gun? It's so subjective that, so it's sort of like, I used to teach motorcycle safety. I used to teach new riders. And at the end, I would tell this class, I'm like, hey, those of you that passed the final test, you are now able to go get your motorcycle license. But just keep in mind, you are competent on a motorcycle in an empty parking lot, going no faster than 20 miles an hour, not going higher than second gear. If you think that makes you ready to jump on Route 95, 695 through Washington, D.C., and Baltimore on a motorcycle on the highway at rush hour, you might want to reassess what you consider risky behavior. And it's sort of like the same thing with a gun, right? You can go through one training class, and if you never touch it again, other than you put it on in the morning and walk around town, how prepared are you to utilize that tool when you need to use that tool?
Absolutely. And, with that, I talk about with competency, right? Competency, it doesn't matter how long the class really is. Competency doesn't come from the class. What does that come from? Well, competency to me is a journey, right? It's a journey over time. It's repetition over time. It getting to the point where you're able to apply the skills on demand without any conscious thought, and you have true ownership over that skill set. And it doesn't matter what the class is. That's not going to come from a day or a weekend. That comes from repetition over time. And I think that it's that repetition over time that really begins to drive home the skills when you built the skills that are contextually appropriate to the context of use.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we got a comment, like, guns don't need to be registered. I agree. But I don't think guns are actually, maybe in some states, not in my state, like, I don't know what states actually register guns. I guess the states where you have a permit or a permit to buy or whatever, and it's listed on that, I guess that would be considered a form of registration, but totally agree.
Yep. Louisiana doesn't have a registration either.
Yeah.
Let's see. Andrew Nelson, says beyond the firearms training, you probably should consider hand-to-hand training, as well. And situational awareness can keep you out, or will keep you out of bad scenarios. And situational awareness is, it's something that, obviously it's a term. I think we've done entire shows on it, but it's being aware of your surroundings. Obviously, is a good thing. Now, we can't always be aware all the time of everything, but awareness does potentially give us the ability to evade the problem. Deryck said a minute ago, kind of run away. There's nothing wrong with running away. And it's like, if you become aware of something, absolutely, you've got the ability to hopefully evade out of that situation if you have the time to be able to do so. The hand-to-hand, it's Ryan Hoover, teaching on the Personal Defense Network training tour. He teaches a lot of that inside of two arms reach space in the hand-to-hand stuff, is because there are, a lot of fights that do end up in that way. Now, a lot of gun use typically, way more often than not, takes place outside of the two arms reach space. But there are a lot of encounters where people are fighting for their life inside of two arms reaches, no doubt about it.
Hand to hand is like definitely a lot more people in the gun world really need to get that sort of training. But let's be real, right? What's the fun part? The fun part is making a gun go bang bang and putting holes in paper, not spending 8 hours sweaty and sore and being handed your own butt a few times on the ground while you're doing hand stuff. Right? Like, so I get it. Like the hand-to-hand stuff is huge and people should do it. And especially, like, I'll see guys on the range and I'm like, yeah, you really should be doing some hand-to-hand stuff. Like, because you're not going to run real fast, real far. Like, so you're more than likely going to need hand-to-hand more than that kid that's 22 years old and fit and can probably run a 5 to 6 minute mile.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing
3 mile, no problem.
There's one thing you always have available to you, right? Yeah. Generally speaking, and that's it's the only thing that you have when you don't have anything else on, right? It's your hands, and that's there a couple of years ago in New Orleans at our airport in New Orleans, you had a guy that shows up with a can of wasp spray and a machete. And he pulls out a can of wasp spray in the TSA security line and starts hosing people down, but very quickly pulls out a machete and starts hacking away, right? Well, if you're the unlucky person standing in the TSA security line when the machete guy shows up and you're not carrying your gun, because that's not a thing for the large majority of travelers, and and you're not carrying your pepper spray, you're not carrying your taser, you're not carrying the scary pins that TSA doesn't like, and and you're stuck improvising that situation. Maybe you're carrying an improvised tool, but bottom line is there you are without any of the traditional weapons. And and do you have to have a weapon? No, but you have to have the ability to protect yourself in some form or fashion, right? The lady that we talked about with the hero lady tonight, she didn't have a weapon, but she also had the the awareness and the wits about her to quickly act. But yeah, hand to hand is a thing. So if you had a track, like if you had somebody who was looking, they just got into firearms last year, they're wanting to carry on their constitution to carry, how do you see that track of training on what they should be training now and where to go to next?
Well, obviously, any of our watchers, the people watch us, they know I'm gonna say get into a counter ambush, a gun counter ambush course, like a DSF, an IDS, something along those lines, right? Those are the base skills that will work as we talk about in class, from that worst counter ambush moment all the way back down, to I want to go to the range and just train. Those skills will work, and there's something that you can build upon and get better at them. Then after that, I always tell them you need to get into a stop the bleed, like some sort of first aid class for stop the bleed. Because if you take that one class of counter ambush and continue training on your own, because when we send them off, we want them obviously to come back to class and train with us some more. But we do stress that at the end of class, what skills do you need to work on that you think you still need to work on, and how do you get better at those skills? And if you don't know how to get better, ask me and I will tell you what drills, what things you should be doing on the range on your own time to get better at those skills. Right? Like if we do that, at least we're setting them up for, learning skills and being at least competent with a firearm, taking it on and off their body, storing it at the house, stuff like that. That's the base in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's
it's not dress up and play LARP, and pretend you're in the military. I mean, I know those are fun classes to go to, but
again, contextually appropriate, right? Getting really good at the stuff that applies to your life, that applies to your home, that applies to your job, your day to day. And so numerous times in the New Orleans area, we've seen drivers get robbed or get murdered over the past few years, like Uber drivers or Lyft or taxi cab drivers, that kind of stuff. And so if you spend your day to day with strangers in the back seat of your car, then obviously you should be thinking about being able to protect yourself inside of that vehicle environment. Whether that is inside of that two arms reach space, or even being able to deploy guns in those types of situations, use guns in that encounter, right? And so it just comes back to what your life looks like. And so yeah, obviously the counter ambush defensive gun use class, the medical class, understanding the concepts of bleeding control. I think those are huge.
And then the use of force class,
that's actually what I was getting ready to say. And to me, I think that that's big. And being that whether or not you're required to go through that because of your state or not, understanding when you should be using deadly force versus when the law says that you can use deadly force. Understanding all of that. I mean, it's in my online class, it's like I go through different scenarios that we've done where I pick apart a couple of different publicized defensive gun use encounters, and really peel back the layers and tell the entire story. Right. One of the stories that I talk about was from New Orleans back in like 2011, 2012, where, ultimately the guy was justified for his actions, but, It sounds good on paper, it seems good, but when you start peeling back all the different layers, you find out all the different stuff, like being suspended from the job, getting arrested, having to pay probably $10,000 to get out of jail, having to move because it's no longer safe because you're worried about retaliation in the area that you're living in, right? Having to go in front of multiple grand juries only to have, the potential charges get upgraded a decade later that are coming back into play, right? I mean, it's just when you start peeling back all these layers, so there's so much that we need to have at least some foundational understanding of to help prevent getting into these types of situations, into the, certainly the deadly force encounter situations when they can be prevented, but also understand all of the aftermath that comes into play as well.
Yeah. Somebody just said stop. Somebody just John attended Stop the Bleed last week. Hey, to anybody watching this, if you're like, I don't know where to go, Stop the Bleed is a great class.
It is. And personaldefensenetwork.com, right, has a class on there taught, by a medical professional on bleeding control. And so you can get started tonight for that matter and be able to go through the video-based lessons. Obviously, you're not building the skills and the training, but at least gives you a contextual foundation, of the concepts to be able to understand them much better, if you don't have a good understanding of that stuff now.
Yeah. I mean, but constitutional carry, right? In a perfect world, we'd have constitutional carry across all 50 states. You wouldn't have to worry about permits. But if you're in one of these states like mine, Florida, I'm really going to be curious how many people end up in trouble traveling with a gun because they didn't take the time, effort, and energy to really look at the law and drive out of this state with a gun concealed, thinking that means they can just carry a gun concealed in other states.
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
still gonna get a permit if you want to go out of state and get reciprocity.
Right, and that's it. Half the country is constitutional carry, but I mean, there's states like Mississippi that is constitutional carry for residents of Mississippi only. Right. And so if I see them on the map and, Joe try to conceal carry in Mississippi without a recognized permit, well, I could be subjecting myself to criminal charges. And, and again, educational purposes only, none of this being legal advice, that's just it. People get themselves in all kind of pickles because they, apply their basic understanding of what they think the law is and try to apply that in many other states. And so you still need the concealed carry permit, for reciprocity reasons. Most people are still going to want the concealed carry permit because they like carrying within 1,000 feet of school property, right? And, at least some states and federal law require the concealed carry permit to be able to carry in that firearm-free zone surrounding school property.
Last time I looked at the proposed coming up for Florida, it did affect how close you could be to a school. So like a concealed carry permit holder could be closer to a school. You still can't be on school property, but like, driving around near a school, whatever, a concealed carry permit, I believe you still could be closer on the road to near a school than an unlicensed.
Yeah, and I can't speak for, Florida or other states, but Louisiana concealed carry permit holders have a very clear exemption. Concealed carry permit holders with a permit issued by the state. So by Louisiana, they can carry in the 1,000 feet surrounding school properties. You can carry all the way up to school property, but you're not allowed to carry on school property in any way. But that exemption exists for the concealed carry permit holder, not just for the constitutional carry for military vets that we passed this year. Right. And so, most people are still going to want the permit for that. And if you don't understand that part of the law, you could be subjecting yourself to some pretty heavy criminal charges because your state is constitutional carry. You still need a concealed carry permit, last time I checked, to be able to carry in places like the National Wildlife Refuges or federal park properties, that kind of stuff, or some state park properties, right? State wildlife management areas could still require those concealed carry permits. In Louisiana, you still need a concealed carry permit to carry in any restaurant that serves alcohol for on-premises consumption. This is Louisiana. I mean, our gas stations, don't sell it for on-premise consumption, but you can buy alcohol in the gas station, state of Louisiana, in most hours of the day in most places. But almost every restaurant serves alcohol for on-premises consumption. And so if you're just falling under, well, my state's constitutional carry, but don't have that deeper understanding of it, again, you may be breaking the law and not even realizing it. So, it's again, it highlights it doesn't matter if the training is required or not, the responsibility to have an understanding of all of that stuff surrounding it still exists.
Yep. So bottom line, constitutional carry is awesome, but there's a lot of responsibility that still comes with it.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Well, we've had a lot of great comments, a lot of people tuning in from different places tonight. Thank everyone for taking the time to listen in, to like, to share it, all of that kind of stuff. Thank you to Primary Arms Online for sponsoring the show. And again, as we kind of jump forward, look for more live events surrounding the training tour. But if you haven't taken a look at it yet, jump on the PDNTrainingTour.com website to be able to see the different sponsors, to be able to see the different instructors teaching and all of the different classes. Because it doesn't matter where you are in the U.S., there's going to be a class that is the very least within driving distance from you, with pretty solid educators in the personal defense space teaching different stuff. If you don't have one in your hometown and you want to host a defensive handgun, carbine, active shooter response, any of that kind of stuff, then reach out to one of us or one of the tour instructors. And if there is an empty block, I'm sure that we can make something work out as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Definitely so. And if y'all aren't members of the PDN, I think we've got a link in the description. Check it out. I think that personaldefensenetwork.com has got to be the largest source of free information surrounding personal defense. But behind the scenes, for the premium members, there's also a tremendous amount of premium content, some of it full DVD length. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out as well using that link below. Other than that, it is the end of the show. Thank you all for tuning in. You can find me online at Bearco Training under most of the social media accounts, or just my name for Instagram, Barret Kendrick. And you can find Deryck at
echo5.com and Echo5 Training on the various social media platforms.
We'll be back the first Wednesday in April for the Training Talk show. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.